The clock on the wall of the neurology clinic ticks louder than the air conditioner. Lottie Payne sits on the edge of the exam table, fingers twisted in the hem of her blazer, watching Dr. Gray Miller slide a scan onto the light board. He studies it for a long time. Too long. Miss Payne, he says finally, voice slow and grave. You have a malignant brain tumor. It is advanced. If we are realistic, you may have about 3 months. The words hit harder than any impact she has ever known. 3 months. 12 weeks. 90 days. I am 25. Lottie says. I still rent a studio apartment. I have a plant named Kevin that keeps almost dying. I am not even old enough to complain about my back without being mocked. Gray folds his hands. I am very sorry. He says. We will schedule more tests, but you should consider time away from work, travel, time with loved ones. She signs forms she cannot remember reading. She listens to terms like treatment plan and palliative care. Then she leaves the hospital with a plastic folder and a headache that might be a tumor or might be bad coffee. Outside, New York blares and honks around her. Taxi horns, sirens, a guy selling knockoff headphones on the corner. Life keeps going. 3 months. Her phone buzzes with a notification. Status meeting, Monday 10 a.m. Walker Creative Conference Room A. She stares at it, then laughs. The sound comes out too loud, on the edge of a sob. If she really has 3 months, she is not spending them letting her boss and her boyfriend tell her she is. Too passive. One more time. She raises a hand for a cab. Midtown, she says when one stops. And please ignore all traffic laws. Walker Creative looks like a magazine spread about modern success. White walls, glass doors, framed awards, an espresso machine that cost more than her car. Through the conference room window, Lottie sees her boss, Patrick Sloan, at the head of the table, and her boyfriend, CEO Kane Walker, beside him. At the front of the room, Miranda Cohen clicks through a deck. On the screen behind Miranda is Lottie's Summer Squeeze Soda campaign. Her tagline, her dancing lemon mascot, her late nights. I stayed up 3 nights polishing this concept. Miranda says, smiling. Something inside Lottie snaps. She pushes the door open without knocking. It smacks the wall. Heads turn. Miranda falters. Lottie. Patrick says. We are in the middle of a meeting. Perfect, Lottie says. I have an announcement. She walks to the front of the room, plucks the remote from Miranda's hand, and stops on the hero slide. This campaign is mine, she says. These are my sketches. She plugs her phone into the cable, throws her camera roll onto the screen. Rough lemon doodles, timestamps, messages to the client. The email where she sent the concept to Patrick last week. And this, she says, tapping to the next image, is the email where Patrick forwarded my work to Miranda. So maybe the only thing she stayed up all night doing was changing the font. Nervous laughter flickers around the table. Miranda goes pale. I was just helping, Miranda says. Patrick asked me to step in. Patrick lifts his hands. We work as a team, he says. No one owns ideas here. The overtime sure feels like it is mine, Lottie says. The ulcers too. The credit seems to travel. Lottie. Kane says, cutting in. His voice is smooth, warning. This is not professional. If you had a problem, you should have come to me privately. She looks at him, the man she has bent her life around for 2 years. He loves that she is kind, but calls her too soft when she does not fight the way he does. He says he wants a partner, but he treats her like a support staff member he can kiss in elevators. 3 months. Actually, she says. This is exactly the right time. She unclips her badge and drops it on the table. I quit, she says. Effective immediately. Patrick, you can keep the unpaid overtime and buy yourself a conscience. Gasps, murmurs. Lottie. Kane says, pushing back his chair. Do not do this. We can talk later. Oh, we will talk, she says. Right now, I have one more item on my agenda. She turns to him fully. Kane Walker, she says. We are done. The room goes dead quiet. Even the espresso machine stops hissing. He stares like she just started speaking another language. Excuse me, he says. You think I am not ambitious enough, she says. You tell me to push harder, hustle more, be hungrier. The truth is, I have been starving myself for you. For this place. I am done. You are overreacting, he says. We can figure this out. I just got told I have 3 months to live, she says. I am done figuring out how to be small enough to fit your comfort. I am not spending what is left of my life begging for scraps of respect. A few people flinch. Patrick looks like he swallowed a stapler. Lottie slings her bag over her shoulder, looks around one last time, and smiles. It feels sharp and new on her face. Have a great quarter, she says and walks out. The elevator doors close on the stunned faces of her colleagues and the man she used to imagine growing old with. When she steps onto the street, the cold air hits her lungs like a dare. 3 months, she thinks. Time to actually live them. 2 days after burning down her old life, Lottie drags a suitcase up a gravel driveway by a lake 2 hours north of the city. The lakeside lantern is smaller than the website made it look. The porch leans a little. The wooden sign out front has a painted lantern on it that someone clearly gave up on halfway through. The woman who opens the door wears an apron that says, "World's okayest host," and has gray curls piled on her head. "You must be Lottie," she says. "I am Marge. Come in before the wind blows you back to Manhattan." Inside, the inn smells like coffee and pancakes. A cat sleeps on the reception counter, tail flicking. "How long are you staying?" Marge asks, flipping through the reservation book. Lottie hesitates. 3 months, she says, voice steady. "Give or take?" Marge just nods. "Extended stay it is," she says. "Breakfast at 8. House rules are on the fridge. I recommend breaking at least one of them." Builds character. Lottie laughs, surprised at how easy it is. Her room faces the lake. The view is all gray water and bare trees. She drops her suitcase and steps onto the tiny balcony, letting the cold air sting her cheeks. She opens the Notes app on her phone. Terminal Girl Bucket List 1. Stop apologizing for existing. 2. Eat dessert first. 3. Say what I think. 4. Help people who actually want help. 5. Do 0 work for free. 6. Make at least one stupidly bold decision a day. She adds one more line. 7. Do not waste time on people who would not attend my funeral. It turns out that once you stop being terrified of upsetting people, you have a lot more free time. At the grocery store, Lottie watches a man cut in front of an elderly woman at the deli counter. "Hey," Lottie says. "She was here first. Unless you are on fire, you can wait your turn." The man sputters, retreats, and the woman gives Lottie a grateful smile that warms her more than any latte. At a touristy cafe that tries to charge her a view fee for sitting near a window, she points at the menu and raises an eyebrow. "If the lake comes in the mug," she says, "I will pay for it. Otherwise, take the charge off." The manager caves. She leaves with free pie. Back at the inn, she becomes strange, chaotic glue. She helps a teenage guest rehearse the speech she is going to give her dad about applying to art school instead of business programs. She teaches an anxious guy on vacation how to block his ex on social media. "You are scarily good at this," Marge says one night as they do dishes together. "I have been training my whole life," Lottie says. "I just usually use the skill on ad copy instead of real people." In quiet moments, fear still creeps in. She wakes up at 3 a.m., counting imaginary weeks on the ceiling. She stares at the lake and imagines it as a deadline slowly closing in. But then she remembers the meeting room, the badge hitting the table, the look on Kane's face when she said "we are done." The freedom shines brighter than the fear. Back in Manhattan, Kane Walker is discovering what his life looks like without the person he always assumed would be there. The office runs. Of course it does. Meetings get scheduled. Decks get built. Clients call. Patrick reassigns Lottie's accounts with cheerful efficiency. But cracks appear. No one restocks the snacks Lottie always kept in the cabinet. The new intern spells a major client's name wrong on a deck, because no one proofreads the way she did. The coffee machine keeps blinking an error code nobody understands, because she used to fix it without being asked. Kane finds himself staring at his phone more than his spreadsheets. He scrolls through old texts, memes she sent him at 2 a.m., photos of latte art animals she made to entertain herself on long nights. Willow corners him in a coffee shop 3 days after the breakup scene. "You look like a ghost," she says. And not in a romantic damage way, more in a sad spreadsheet way. "What did she tell you?" he asks. "About why she left." Willow crosses her arms. "That she finally remembered she has a spine," she says. "And that she has better things to do than wait for you to notice it." He swallows. "There was more," he says. "In the meeting," she said. Willow's expression softens, just slightly. "Right," she says quietly. "The hospital thing." He frowns. "What hospital thing?" Willow stares at him for a second, realization dawning. "She did not tell you," she says. Of course she did not. She did not want to be a burden. A heavy feeling settles in his chest. Tell me what, he says. Willow glances at the barista, then back at him. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Willow says. 3 months. She called me from the sidewalk outside the hospital. She was laughing and crying at the same time. That meeting where she exploded? She went straight there from the appointment. The world tilts. That is not possible. Kane says. We would have known. There would have been paperwork. She did not tell you because you already told Patrick she was too passive for the senior role. Willow says. She heard you. She decided she did not owe you one more explanation. He sinks into a chair, stomach churning. Where is she? He asks. Please. Willow hesitates, then sighs. She needed space. She says. But she mentioned a lake. Some inn with a stupid name. That is all you are getting. If you really care, use that business brain for something useful. He spends that night on his couch, searching lakeside inns within driving distance. When he sees a listing for the lakeside lantern with a photo of a crooked porch and a hand-painted sign, something in his chest lurches. The next morning, he packs a bag, cancels his meetings, and gets in his car. For once, the only metric that matters is time. Lottie is sitting on the dock with her feet hovering over the water when a black SUV crunches up the gravel driveway. Kevin the plant sits beside her in his pot, looking marginally less dead in the crisp air. She is debating whether to admit she has grown attached to him when she hears a voice she knows far too well. Lottie. She turns. Kane Walker stands at the edge of the path, wind ruffling his hair, city suit and city shoes all wrong against the lake backdrop. He looks like a man who has not slept in days. Marge appears on the porch behind him, dish towel in hand. Friend of yours? She calls. Former boss, former boyfriend, current stress rash. Lottie calls back. Kane hurries down the dock. He stops a few feet away, chest heaving like he sprinted the last stretch. I heard. He says, voice raw. About the diagnosis. Lottie closes her eyes for half a second. Willow. She mutters. Traitor. Out loud she says. And I am so sorry. He says. Lottie, I had no idea. I thought you were just angry. I did not know you were terrified. I was a jerk in that meeting. I have been a jerk for a long time. His eyes shine. To her shock, they overflow. I spent 3 days imagining you going through this alone. He says. Thinking about every time I pushed you to work harder instead of asking how you were. I hate myself for it. He drops to his knees on the weathered boards. Actual knees, on actual wood, in front of actual people. Several guests on the porch lean forward, openly staring. Kane. She hisses. Get up. I am begging you. He says, ignoring her. Let me stay. Let me be with you for whatever time you have left. Let me cook for you and drive you to appointments and yell at doctors until they regret their life choices. She stares at him, mind blank. 3 months ago, he would have talked about optimizing her treatment schedule. He would have made a spreadsheet. Now he is kneeling on a dock like a man who finally understands he cannot control everything. You do not get to turn my illness into your redemption arc. She says. I know. He says. This is not about me feeling better. This is about making sure you do not have to be brave by yourself. Marge clears her throat from the shore. If you are going to propose, at least buy a drink first. She calls. Kane actually huffs out a laugh through his tears. I am not proposing. He says. I am just applying for the role of live-in support staff. Lottie looks at him for a long moment. There is pain behind his eyes that she did not put there. There is also something she has not seen in a while. Humility. You can stay. She says slowly. On one condition. Anything. He says. You do not tell me how to spend my time. She says. No schedules. No speeches about hustle. If I decide my legacy is eating pancakes and yelling at tourists who litter, you are not allowed to rebrand it. His shoulders slump in visible relief. Deal. He says. I will eat pancakes and yell at tourists with you. The porch erupts in soft applause. Marge shakes her head, smiling. Guess we are a romantic drama now. She says. I should raise the rates. Kane checks into the room next to Lottie's and promptly turns into the most intense volunteer the Lakeside Lantern has ever seen. He carries luggage for new guests. He helps Marge fix a broken step. He restocks the board game shelf. When Lottie walks into the kitchen one morning, he is standing at the stove, frowning at a frying pan like it insulted his family. What are you doing? She asks. Making you breakfast. He says. Marge said I could if I promised not to burn the place down. He presents a slightly mangled omelette with the pride of a man announcing a merger. It is not pretty, he says. But it is edible. She takes a bite. It tastes like eggs and effort. It is good, she admits. He lights up like he just closed a deal. Their days form a strange rhythm. They walk around the lake, talking about everything except cancer. They sit on the porch with coffee, watching the sun try to decide if it wants to fight through the clouds. They help Marge with chores and listen to guests tell their own messy stories. At night, when the inn quiets, Lottie hears the faint murmur of Kane's voice through the wall, talking to his office. "No, Patrick," he says one evening. "I am not coming back this week. No, the agency will not collapse if you have to present your own deck for once." Lottie smiles into her pillow. On a particularly clear night, they end up on the dock again, wrapped in blankets. "I keep thinking about all the times I told you to be realistic," Kane says quietly. "About your writing, your art, that podcast idea. I thought I was protecting us. I was really just afraid of you wanting something I could not control." "At least you admit it," she says. "You were always braver than me," he says. "You just did not know it yet." She snorts. "Stop trying to make my character arc sound like a pitch," she says. "You do not get a commission on my growth." He laughs softly. "Fair," he says. "But can I at least be part of it?" She looks at him, at the man who used to seem made of stone, and now looks very, very human. "For now," she says. "You are on probation. It is not forgiveness, not yet, but it is not nothing." On a gray Thursday, the mail truck pulls up to the lakeside lantern. Marge sorts the envelopes at the front desk, muttering about coupons and overdue bills. "Letter for you, Doom Girl," she calls. From New York General. Lottie takes the envelope. Her fingers tingle. Kane appears at her elbow like he felt a disturbance in the force. "You okay?" he asks. "About to find out," she says. She tears it open. Inside is a formal letter and a new report. Her eyes snag on a single sentence. "Due to an internal review, we regret to inform you that your previous diagnosis was given in error." Her brain stalls. "They messed up," she says. Kane's hand tightens on the back of a chair. "Messed up how?" he says carefully. She keeps reading. The letter explains that a technician misread her scan. That Dr. Miller failed to follow protocol. That the shadow everyone panicked about is a harmless artifact. That her headaches are migraines, not signs of a deadly tumor. They apologize for the distress. They offer to answer questions. They do not mention the word lawsuit, but it hums between the lines. "I do not have cancer," Lottie says slowly. "I am not dying in 3 months, not any more than the usual random chance." The room tilts. Relief and rage crash together in her chest. Kane makes a choked sound and sits down hard. "You are okay," he says, like he needs to hear it out loud. "You are okay." He scrubs at his face. Tears slip through his fingers anyway. "I spent 2 weeks thinking about how to make your last months bearable," he says. "I have never been more grateful to be wrong in my life." Marge leans on the counter, watching. "Congratulations," she says dryly. "You got a miracle and a malpractice case in one envelope." Lottie laughs, half hysterical. "I quit my job," she says. "I broke up with my boyfriend. I told my boss to moisturize his conscience. I would like to thank Dr. Miller for sponsoring my villain origin story." Kane huffs out a damp laugh. "I deserved the breakup either way," he says. "But I am going to help you make sure he never does this to anyone else." Back in the city, a lawyer named Carla Harper listens to Lottie's story and flips through the apology letter with rising disgust. "This is not a small mistake," Carla says. "This is a disaster. You were given a death sentence because someone was careless. I made huge decisions because of it," Lottie says. "I walked away from my career. I rearranged my life. You cannot just send an oops letter and call it a day." Carla nods. "We take the case," she says. "The hospital will try to settle. They will want this quiet. You decide how loud you want to be." Lottie thinks about the fear, the sleepless nights, the way she begged her reflection to look brave. She thinks about how many other people do not get apology letters, only funerals. "Loud," she says. "Very loud." They file the suit. Willow posts a photo of Lottie at the lake with a caption about medical negligence. It goes viral. News hosts call. A podcast invites her to talk. She sits in a studio chair, fingers tangled, and tells millions of strangers about the worst appointment of her life. "The worst part was not the idea of dying," she says into the mic. "It was realizing how much of my life I had already handed to people who did not deserve it." Messages flood in. Stories. Support. Ugly comments too, but she learns to mute them like ad spam. During all of it, Kane hovers without smothering. He drives her to appointments. He brings snacks to the law office. He sits in the back of the courtroom, silent and steady. "Why are you here?" she asks him once in the hallway. "Because I finally figured out loving someone is not about being the main character," he says. "It is about carrying extra water when they are tired." "You are not carrying my water," she says. "You are carrying my tote bag." "Same principle," he says. In the end, the hospital settles. The number on the check makes Lottie's head spin. It does not erase what happened, but it cracks open a door she thought was permanently locked. "You have resources now," Carla says. "What do you want to build?" Lottie does not even have to think about it. "My own studio," she says. "One where people do not steal ideas and call it teamwork." 3 months after the misdiagnosis, a small crowd stands outside a brick storefront in Brooklyn. The sign over the door reads "Oops Creative" in bright, hand-painted letters. Below it, someone has written in smaller script, "We turn mistakes into better stories." Willow holds up her phone, recording. "Say something inspiring," she urges. Lottie looks at the camera. "I almost let a bad diagnosis, and some worse people decide my whole life," she says. "Turns out I just needed an excuse to reset." "Welcome to the reset." She unlocks the door. The studio smells like fresh paint and coffee. 2 desks sit near the front window. A long table in the back waits for storyboards. The walls are blank, ready to be filled. Kane walks in behind her, carrying a box of plants. "You ready, boss?" he asks. She grins. "Very ready," she says. Rule 1, no stealing credit. Rule 2, no campaigns that make people feel like trash. Rule 3, no calling women too soft when what you mean is easy to take advantage of. "Noted," he says. "Especially Rule 3. As they start unpacking, the memory of the hospital letter feels less like a curse and more like a badly written first draft she tore up. This, she thinks, is the rewrite. Oops Creative does not explode overnight. It grows like a stubborn weed in a sidewalk crack. Their first client is a tiny thrift shop that wants a flyer. Lottie spends an entire afternoon talking to the owner about how every dress has a story and designs a poster that looks like a scrapbook. Their second is a food truck that sells late-night grilled cheese. Mateo, the junior designer she hired, draws a logo with a cheese moon and sleepy stars. The truck sells out within 2 weeks of launching the new look. Word spreads. People come to Oops not just because of the viral misdiagnosis story, but because the work feels different. The ads show messy apartments and soft bellies and people saying no to overwork. The campaigns make jokes about burnout instead of glamorizing it. They are buying honesty. Willow says one day, scrolling through comments. "Who knew that was allowed?" Lottie does. Now, in between campaigns, she still has to deal with her past. Dr. Gray loses his license, at least for a while. She sees his name in a news article, followed by words like investigation and disciplinary action. She feels a grim satisfaction, but no joy. It will not fix what he did, she tells Kane. But maybe it stops the next oops from ruining someone else. Kane nods. "You turned their mistake into a warning sign," he says. "That is more than most people manage." One rainy Tuesday, the bell over the studio door jingles, and in walks Miranda Cohen. She looks smaller without the polished conference room backdrop. Her hair is perfect as ever, but her smile is brittle. "Lottie," Miranda says. "Hi." Willow mutters something that sounds like, "Absolutely not," under her breath and moves to stand at Lottie's shoulder. "What do you want?" Lottie asks. "I heard you were hiring," Miranda says. "Walker Creative is rough right now. Clients keep asking why you are not in the room. Patrick blames me for everything. I thought maybe I could get a fresh start here." "You want to work for the woman whose campaign you stole," Willow says. "Bold." Miranda winces. "I know I messed up," she says quickly. "I was under pressure. I thought that was how the industry worked. I am trying to be better." Lottie looks at her. Once, she would have absorbed the guilt and offered a second chance, then stayed up nights wondering when the next knife would land. Now, she thinks about her team in the back room, about Matea's careful designs and Willow's fierce protection. "You did not just make a mistake, Miranda," Lottie says. "You made a choice, more than once." Miranda's eyes shine. "I am sorry," she says. "I really am." "I hope you are," Lottie says. "And I hope you find a place to prove it, but it will not be here." Miranda nods slowly. She looks like she wants to argue, then seems to think better of it. "Okay," she says. For what it is worth, you were always better than that place. She leaves. The bell jingles behind her like a period at the end of a sentence. Willow lets out a low whistle. Queen behavior, she says. 10 out of 10 boundary setting. Lottie exhales. I was shaking the entire time. She says. You still said what you meant. Willow replies. Cancer scare or not, that is who you are now. Later that week, Lottie and Kane grab lunch at a diner across the street. Rain streaks the window. The studio sign glows softly through the drizzle. You know what I realized? She says, dipping a fry in ketchup. That I am the only person on earth who likes their fries without sauce. He says. That too, she says. But mostly, I realized I am not afraid of starting over anymore. I did it once because I thought I was dying. Now I know I can do it anytime I need to. He smiles at her over his coffee. I am glad you chose to start over with me in the picture. He says. You are still on probation. She reminds him. I know. He says. I am just hoping to pass the renewal. The thing about ghost work, she thinks, is that once you stop doing it for other people, you finally have the energy to do real work for yourself. She is never going back. Summer in Brooklyn smells like street food and hot pavement. The studio's old air conditioner wheezes, but the work keeps coming. One Friday evening, Willow appears in Lottie's office doorway with a suspiciously innocent expression. Roof, she says. Now, if there is a raccoon in the vents again, I am not handling it. Lottie says, standing anyway. She climbs the stairs and pushes open the door to the roof. Fairy lights are strung between vents and railings. Kevin the plant sits near the edge, thriving in a new pot. The city stretches out in all directions, windows glowing like pixels. In the middle of the roof is a small table covered in photos. Kane stands beside it in a plain white shirt and dark jeans, looking more nervous than she has ever seen him in a boardroom. This is a fire hazard, she says automatically. I got permission, he says. And several fire extinguishers. She steps closer to the table. The photos are snapshots of the past year. Her on the lake dock, arms wide. Him on his knees, ridiculous and broken. The two of them outside the courthouse, pulling faces. The day they painted the oops sign. A blurry shot of them asleep on the studio couch, heads tipped together, pizza boxes on the floor. You kept all of these, she says. I wanted proof, he says. That we made it through something impossible. That you chose to stay even after you did not have to. He takes a deep breath, then drops to one knee. Kane, she says. If this is another apology, I am charging an hourly rate. He laughs, voice shaking. It is not an apology, he says. Or not just that. Lottie Payne, you turned the worst news of your life into the best version of yourself. You walked away from a job that did not value you, took on a hospital that tried to erase you, and built a home for people who used to be invisible. He looks up at her, eyes bright. I have loved you since before you believed any of that about yourself, he says. I was too arrogant and too scared to say it, but I am done being cowardly. I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the second chance you gave me. He opens a small box. Inside is a thin silver ring with a pale yellow stone. It is citron, he says quickly. Sunlight, optimism. Also, it kind of looks like soda, which felt on brand. She laughs, tears blurring her vision. You are terrible at traditional romance, she says. That is why I need a creative director, he says. So, Lottie, will you marry me? Not as my subordinate, not as my plus one, but as my equal. As the person who tells me when I am wrong, and steals the covers, and still lets me make you coffee. She thinks of the hospital room, the dock, the lawsuit, the studio. She thinks of the girl who whispered, and the woman who does not. On one condition, she says. He swallows. Name it. You never again call me too soft, she says. If you even think the words, I get to rebrand your entire wardrobe in bright lemon yellow. He grins. Deal, he says. Then yes, she says. I will marry you. A cheer erupts from below. She spins to see faces pressed to the studio windows, phones held up. Willow stands at the stairwell door, grinning like she planned the whole thing, which she probably did. You invited an audience, Lottie says. They watched us survive, Kane says. I thought they deserved to see us live. He slides the ring onto her finger. It catches the light from the city, glowing like a small captured sunrise. They stand at the edge of the roof, fingers intertwined, looking out over Brooklyn. I used to think my life would be defined by that misdiagnosis, she says quietly. It was the worst first draft, he says. You rewrote it. She smiles. With help. She says. Minor feedback. He says. This is your story. She leans her head on his shoulder. Maybe. She says. But I am glad you are in the sequel. Downstairs, the sign for Oops Creative glows against the brick. People walk by without knowing that the girl who thought she was dying built something out of panic and anger and stubborn hope. Up here, under cheap fairy lights and a sky full of city haze, Lottie Payne decides that if her life ever flashes before her eyes again, she wants this version on the reel. The one where she stopped waiting for permission. The one where she said what she meant. The one where oops turned into I do.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.